So for this video, I'm going to be doing a book tag because I was kindly tagged by Boiled Jellyfish to do the 54321 book tag. And I don't think he wasn't the original creator. I think he just kind of saw this on Book Talk or whatever and tagged me in it and wanted me to answer these questions. And basically the idea behind the tag is that it's, 54321, and I have to talk about 5 books I love, 4 books on my TBR, 3 book recommendations, 2 recent 5-star reads, and 1 current read. So basically, I'm just going to be listing off all of those, and hopefully I can get some good recommendations for y'all and let y'all know what I've been up to. I know I haven't been doing a lot of filming, but hopefully I can get back into the swing of things here, and book tags definitely help because I don't really have to think of an idea. The idea is thrust upon me. So yeah, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first part of this tag is 5 books that you love. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 5 books that I love, but that I haven't read in a long time and I haven't really talked about much on my channel recently. And all of these books I would love to reread eventually. Like if I not to say that I couldn't, but if I could, like, I would just stop everything and just reread these books because I remember loving them so much. The first one I want to talk about is The Picture of Dorian Gray. And this is probably my favorite classic of all time. Like, a lot of the times classics can be bogged down by the language or the theme of what's going on, or just, it just doesn't connect well with me. But this one, for whatever reason, just worked perfectly. Like, this book is just a masterpiece, and I actually understood what the author was going for. It just worked on so many levels for me. So this one I would love to reread just because it's a classic, and I definitely recommend it even for people who don't love classics. Also, one of my favorite horror books of all time that I would love to reread, and that I do recommend kind of hesitantly because I know a lot of people don't love it, but I loved it. Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This book is amazing. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Usually by the halfway point you can know because something happens. Not going to spoil it, but it's really good. The characters are great, very memorable, very creepy. Just one of my favorite horror books I've ever read. One of my all-time favorite authors. I don't love all of these authors' work, but this is definitely my favorite, and also just one of my favorite books of all time that I would love to reread. It's Hard-Boiled Wonderland in the End of the World. This book is very unique. It's interchanging storylines, and every chapter you jump from one perspective to a different perspective. And at first you're not really sure. At first you're like, am I reading 2 different books? But then eventually it all starts to make sense, and you're like, oh, this is what's going on. And Murakami is, of course, known for writing very weird literary fiction. And that's what you're going to get with this book. But man, this book, it still sticks with me. And I really want to reread it. And yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite just books in general. This next book I really haven't read in a very long time. And I'm very interested to see if I still really love it or not. Recently I made Ian the Reader read it. And he gave it like 3.5 stars, which kind of bummed me out a little bit. But I'm thinking I'm still going to love it. I really don't remember that much about it. But I'll just jump into it. Mr. Splitfoot by Samantha Hunt. Now, this book has a funny story because I was just in kind of a reading slump, and I just went to one of my favorite stores, Second and Charles, and said, you know what? I'm just going to pick a random book based off of nothing but the cover. I'm just going to do a cover buy. I'm not going to read on Goodreads. I'm not going to read the back of it. No research of any kind, just based off of the cover alone. And I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I read it in a single setting. Like, I sat down to read at night, and I didn't stop to get up to do nothing. I just finished this book. It was so good. But I don't really remember that much about it, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I would love to reread this book. And yeah, I loved it at the time. But we'll see if that continues. This next book was one of the very first books that I read after I started my BookTube channel. And I just quickly fell in love with it, and it's definitely a book that I know I'm going to still love upon a reread, and that would be Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I've basically loved all of her books, but this is still by far my favorite. It involves classic rock, it involves music, it involves band drama. Just, it's so good. And the audiobook for it is great because it has a full cast narration and it basically kind of reads like a podcast a little bit. And just everything about this book is just so good. And I want to reread it right now. I might reread it right now. No, I don't have time to. I don't have time to. All right, so those were 5 books that I loved that I haven't read in a long time, but I would love to get to. The next section is 4 books that are on my TBR. So I'm going to quickly talk about just 4 books that are on my November TBR. I probably have a video up for that by now, hopefully. But some books that I want to read in the month of November. One of them would be Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. We're doing the Ray Bradbury book club, one Ray Bradbury thing a month, whether that's a collection, novella, or a book like this. This is one of his best novels. Like, he's known for his collections, but this is a really good horror novel. If you haven't read it yet, check it out. If you want to reread it with us, check it out. And then for the Stephen King book club, our pick for November is going to be The Shining, which probably a lot of y'all have read, or if you haven't read it, you've maybe seen the movie, or it's in the zeitgeist, so you know what The Shining is. We're going to be doing that for November, and then consequently for December, we'll be doing Dr. Sleep. So if you want to either reread it or check it out for the first time, we're going to be doing that in November. I really don't like this cover, though. It's like piss yellow. I need a new edition of it, or at least like an older cover of it. A couple of books that we're doing is Good Girls Don't Die by Christina Henry. This is our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club pick for the month of November. It's a random thriller that I don't really know anything about. I'm going to jump into it not knowing anything, so we'll see. Have y'all read it before? I don't know. And another book that I'm going to be doing for my Patreon pick for November, I do have a Patreon, and Patreon members get to pick, well, first of all, I do a wheel spin every month, and my Patreon members are on that wheel. And whoever wins, whoever gets selected, gets to pick any book that they want me to read the following month. And my wife, Stacy, her sister, won for November, and she has picked The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. And I really don't know too much about this. All I know is that it's a nonfiction memoir that's supposed to be pretty hard-hitting and heart-wrenching. So I'm sure I'm really going to like it, but yeah. So those are 4 books that are on my November TBR. And then the next section of this book tag, which I was kindly tagged by Boiled Jellyfish. Go check him out if you haven't already. I don't know if I said that, but yeah, Boiled Jellyfish, good booktuber. Check him out. The next section here is 3 book recommendations. So I'm going to try to recommend some books that I've read recently. So y'all have probably heard me talk about it at least once. But I'm going to talk about The Bone Dolls Twin. This is the first book in the Tamir Triad by Lynn Flo. I can never pronounce this author's last name. Floeling. But anyway, it's such a unique fantasy trilogy. One of the most unique fantasy stories I've ever read. If you don't know the premise, it's kind of got a wacky premise where, like, you know, at the beginning of the story, you know, you've got these kind of like warrior queens who always ruled the land, but then this guy comes along and he basically wants to stop that and kind of tries to kill off all of the female heirs. But at the beginning of the story, you have this woman who gives birth to twins. One of them is a boy, one of them is a girl. And what happens is that the girl is magically turned into a boy, and then there's a prophecy where eventually she will become king, but will kind of transform into a woman and then thus become queen. And it's kind of wackadoodle, but at the same time, the writing is really good. I normally don't care about the actual prose, but the writing is really good. The story is compelling. The characters are great. And the story itself is just very unique. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely check this book out, and it's a wild ride. Last month in September, I also read Brother by Anya Alborn. This is probably my favorite book that I read in all of September. Very disturbing horror book, and it's kind of got that stereotypical horror movie premise of like this weird family in West Virginia. They live deep in the woods and the mountains, and they love to kill people. But what's interesting about this book is that you're following kind of a character in that story that was kind of like weirdly adopted into the family, and they really don't like all of the killing stuff that happens, and they kind of want to get out, but they don't really know how to. And you're following this character's struggles, and then you're also following their past timeline. And at first, I wasn't really too invested in the story. It was more kind of a 3-star book, but by the end, once you realize what's going on, like the whole time, you're like, oh, damn. And it ended up being a really great horror book. So if you're into some really just nasty, disgusting, just edge of your seat horror books, definitely check out Brother by Anya Alborn. And then this next one, you know, it's kind of a thriller. It's got some horrific stuff that happens, but I would argue it's kind of more of a black comedy. And by the title, it's pretty self-evident. It's called An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good. And basically, it's about an old lady that kills people. And this one was actually free on Audible, so if you're an Audible member, you should be able to get it for free. It's like a couple of hours, I think maybe 3. It's a little novella, or it's like a collection of short stories, and it involves this elderly lady that is up to no good. And it's fantastic, and it's really fun. Not perfect by any means, but if you want like a really short thing to get through that's kind of horrific, but also very funny, check it out. And the next section of this tag, the 4th section, is 2 recent 5-star reads. And I've had a lot of 5-star reads, but a lot of them have been rereads. I'm not going to count those. But my 2 most recent 5-star reads would have to be, first off, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. This book was outstanding. I've been meaning to read this book for a while now. I think it came out last year, and I should have read it last year, but I just got to it recently. And it did not disappoint, like with all of his books. I've really enjoyed all of his books, but this one is probably my second favorite. My favorite's still Blacktop Wasteland, but this book just checked off all the boxes. The writing was very good. The character was very compelling. The story was very gripping, like right from the first chapter, and it never let up. So yeah, this book was amazing, 5 stars. And then probably my second favorite book of the year, Dear Hannah by Zoe Stage. This is the long-awaited sequel to Baby Teeth. It's one of my all-time favorite horror books and just books in general. This book picks up, and if you don't know, Baby Teeth, it was about a 7-year-old girl who basically wants to kill her mom. But now, you know, we fast forward, and Hannah is now an adult. She's in her early 20s, and she's domesticated, if you want to call it that. And she kind of has a normal life, but it's interesting to get her thought processes when you know what kind of life she had before all of this, having read Baby Teeth. You can read this as a standalone, but I think it's more fun knowing what's happened in Baby Teeth. So I would recommend reading Baby Teeth and then Dear Hannah. I would say Baby Teeth is better, but Dear Hannah is still a 5-star read. I loved getting into the mind of Hannah as an adult. So I really liked this book. I loved it, in fact, and gave it 5 stars. And then the last section for this tag, 1 current read. And the book that I'm currently reading right now is Age of Death by Michael J. Sullivan. I just started it this morning, and I'm going to hopefully finish it in October when I'm filming this. And then next month, in November, we're going to be doing book 6, Age of Empire. Also, I probably should have said this is book 5 in the Legends of the First Empire series. And this whole series has been a reread for me, one of my all-time favorite fantasy series by Michael J. Sullivan. Book 5, I think I remember giving it 4.5 stars. Definitely one of the better ones in the series, but just the series as a whole, I don't give all of the books 5 stars, but it's like a 4.5, 5-star series for me. Love all of these books, love this series, and yeah, that's the book that I'm currently reading. All right, so that was the 54321 book tag. And again, I was kindly tagged by Boiled Jellyfish. If you haven't already, go check out his channel. He's amazing. And now I'm going to be tagging some other people. So first off, I'm going to tag Ian the Reader. Do it. And I'm also going to tag, who are these people I'm going to tag? Some recent channels that I've started watching that I've been enjoying. Ted Rad Instead. Go check out his channel. I tag you. And then also I'm going to tag Rabin from Only the Best Fantasy Novels. He has some great videos. So go check out both of those channels. Ian, you know, you can kind of take him or leave him. I'm just kidding. Go check out Ian as well. But those are the 3 channels that I tag. And also, if you're watching, you can also comment down below your answers for this. Or if you yourself also have a BookTube channel, you are unofficially tagged. So if you want to do anything with this tag, go check it out. It was a lot of fun compiling my answers for this. So yeah, thanks for watching, and where's my outro? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, thumbs up, subscribe. Like I said, I also have my Patreon channel. For as little as $1, you can sign up and support me there, and you'll have a chance to pick any book that you want me to read, which leads to varying results, but I will give it a shot. I also have my Amazon wish list if you want to buy me a book. And yeah, let's just wrap it up. And thank you guys so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.